It is totally their responsibility. And if they had taken care of the business earlier, we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
The WNBA has a massive problem, and the Indiana Fever are officially done with it. Because what happened to Caitlin Clark against the Connecticut Sun wasn't just a missed call. It wasn't a one-off oversight. It's a pattern.
Here is the problem. So many of these incidents are happening towards Indiana Fever players, particularly Caitlin Clark.
Instead of celebrating the fact that the Fever just made it to the Commissioner's Cup Finals, something that should be headline news, the entire sports world is locked in on something else. The continued reckless way that Caitlin Clark is being treated on the court. In this case, the refs weren't just allowing physical play, they let the Sun attack the literal face of the league and get away with it. And when Fever head coach Stephanie White stepped up to the podium and started answering that very first question about the officiating, you could feel it coming. This wasn't going to be a carefully worded statement. She was setting up for a TKO.
Caitlin, for this first, I know you and Jacy go way back to the Big Ten. What was going on with the chippiness there, and what explanation were you given for the tech that you got?
I'll take the official questions.
I've got all the highlights coming up. This was an epic takedown, and it was necessary. Because if we learned anything from this game, and from Stephanie White's post-game presser, it's this. The WNBA didn't just fail to learn from the 5 games Caitlin Clark missed. They've straight up ignored complaints for a long time. And the Fever have clearly had enough. So let's break down the on-court chaos, the post-game smackdown, and the reaction from the sports world that is officially sounding the alarm on the WNBA. Because we might have just hit a breaking point. First, like this video and drop some sunglasses in the comments because at this point Caitlin might need to start wearing goggles on the court. Alright, so it was the Commissioner's Cup matchup against the Connecticut Sun. Yes, the Sun are basically the bottom feeders of the WNBA, but because the Fever lost to them earlier in the season, this game had a little extra meaning beyond just a berth in the Commissioner's Cup final. The Fever were off and running, had a lead, but there were warning signs of fireworks to come.
And Caitlin Clark are talking to the official. They're both going at it saying, hey, oh, there's a little extra right there. Uh-oh.
Of course, we had Jacy Sheldon in the mix, who, you may recall, was the same player who took out both Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Colson earlier this season. Well, Jacy apparently felt like going for the Fever injury hat trick.
Watch when Caitlin Clark is trying to create some space. It looked like she just got hit in the eye there.
Ooh, and Marina Mabrey. I missed that one, Idona.
Oh, I missed that one too.
Jacy went at the literal face of the league, and then in the chaos, Marina Mabrey body checked Caitlin to the court. And fans couldn't help but be reminded of this exact moment from last season. And of course this.
Question is, will they call it unnecessary? Kennedy Carter.
In just one sequence, the Connecticut Sun managed to combine 2 of the WNBA's most signature attacks on Caitlin Clark, the eye claw and the blindside body check. Now, of course, everyone with functioning eyeballs, not impaired by Jacy Sheldon's talons, could see this was the perfect moment for the league to finally send a message, to show that its biggest star deserves basic protection on the court.
You can't claw someone in the eye. Eject her. Eject both of them. Eject both of them. So there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Nothing there. Jacy Sheldon claws her in the eye. Then the 2 of them get into it, and then Mabrey just goes and shoves her onto the ground. Eject both of them. Eject both of them. Eject both of them.
After all, you'd think that after Caitlin Clark missed 5 games and the league's ratings tanked, the WNBA would be extra careful, maybe even a little protective, of the one player keeping the league afloat. But nope, it's the WNBA, so we got this.
Wait, Jacy Sheldon got away with clawing her in the face. Caitlin got teed up for getting clawed in the face. They didn't even call it a common foul. They didn't call it a common foul. They didn't even call it a common foul. Oh my God. They don't care about players. They don't care about players.
No ejections, and somehow Caitlin Clark ended up getting hit with a technical. Absolutely insane. And then came the reaction. And this is where things exploded. Because fans, analysts, and even former players weren't just upset. They were furious.
When I tell you social media is setting the WNBA on fire right now, not in a good way, that's the understatement.
the entire basketball world started calling out how horribly the league was treating Caitlin Clark, and Sentel didn't even joke about it. He just posted what actually happened, because what was going on was already so absurd, the truth was stranger than fiction.
Yeah, it looked like Caitlin got hit hard, both by Jacy Sheldon and Marina Mabrey there.
I would not be.
Analysts were beside themselves, genuinely in utter disbelief that Marina Mabrey wasn't ejected. You could see it in their faces, hear it in their tone. This wasn't just a missed call. It felt like a breaking point. Because when the face of the league is getting tossed to the floor and she's the one being whistled, something's broken. And even the calmest voices in the room were all saying the same thing. Something needs to be done.
All right, enough is enough. You know, at some point, the line gets crossed too often where something needs to be done and things need to be corrected. And that is certainly the case with the way things around Caitlin Clark are officiated. This is a constant problem now. You know, it is something that since the beginning, I've kind of like backed off on, because physical play is a part of sports. You know, going after a superstar and trying to rough them up a little bit to get in their head is a part of sports. But when it crosses the line, the referees need to do their jobs. They need to do their jobs, blow the whistle, and officiate properly.
And the one voice everyone was waiting to hear from was Fever head coach Stephanie White. Spoiler alert, she didn't just speak. She unleashed a full-blown nuke on the WNBA, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But before we do, there are two things we can't let get lost in the mix. First, the resilience of Caitlin Clark. Because after taking yet another beating on national television, with the game in hand and the crowd on their feet, she didn't just close it out. She plunged the dagger into the Connecticut sun with a cold-blooded three, right over Jacy Sheldon. You couldn't script that better if you tried.
All right. Here is Clark, splashing home a three from way downtown.
And the best part of this? The trash talk. Caitlin didn't just hit the dagger, she let them hear about it. You can see it in the clips from every angle. It wasn't just a shot, it was a statement.
With her hand in her face. Competitive.
But then there's this, and it's absolutely incredible. After the game, the Fever themselves posted Caitlin's reaction in slow motion on X. That wasn't just a celebration, that was a message. And of course, we cannot forget about this.
With the steal. Sheldon going coast to coast. And here's we got another break is here as Jacy Sheldon goes right after Sophie Cunningham.
This is exactly what the Fever needed. Sophie Cunningham delivered some sweet, sweet revenge on Jacy Sheldon, taking her down with a hard, clear-as-day, flagrant foul that sparked a full-on brawl. And honestly, that's why Sophie's here. She was brought in to send messages, to be the enforcer, to make sure that when other teams start taking cheap shots at Caitlin Clark, there are consequences.
This was all game, folks. All game. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were getting checked. All game. The Indiana Fever were getting punked. All game. The referees let this physical style of basketball continue and continue and continue and continue and continue and continue. And eventually, Sophie Cunningham had enough.
That's right. No more freebies. No more soft responses. The Fever are done being passive, and Sophie made that crystal clear. And the crowd absolutely loved it. But here's the part that matters the most here.
It is totally their responsibility. That's a hard foul. That's a flagrant foul. And if they had taken care of the business earlier, we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
How often do you hear broadcast commentators blatantly call out the refs for losing control of a game? That's how bad it got. When officials don't make the calls they should, when they fail to neutralize dangerous play early, this is what happens. Vigilante justice, retaliation, chaos. And that's exactly what we saw. But the reaction off the court is what everybody was waiting for. Because Stephanie White had already gone off on the refs earlier this season. She got fined for it. But this was next level. This wasn't just bad officiating. This was targeted, repeated, dangerous abuse of the league's biggest star. in front of millions. And Stephanie White didn't just speak up. She nuked the WNBA from orbit.
There wasn't an explanation for the tech that she got. You know, I think it was pretty obvious that stuff was brewing, right? When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long. All season long. It's not just this game. It's been happening all season long. This is what happens, right? This is what happens. You've got competitive women who are the best in the world at what they do, right? And when you allow them to play physical and you allow these things to happen, they're going to compete. And they're going to have their teammates' backs.
This is exactly what the commentators were saying too. The refs completely lost control of the game. They weren't calling obvious fouls, weren't protecting players, and when that happens, the players are going to take matters into their own hands. And that's exactly what the Fever did. The message was crystal clear: the Fever are done letting players take liberties with their team. What Sophie did at the end of the game, that wasn't just retaliation. It was 100% necessary and absolutely approved. And look, this kind of thing happens all the time in other leagues. I watch a lot of hockey, and yeah, I know basketball isn't hockey, but the principle is the same. You go after the star, the enforcer steps in. No questions asked. It's a message. You do not touch our star. Now, Stephanie White clearly tried to shield Caitlin from the media storm, stepping up to take the questions herself. But you could see it all over her face. She was furious, and then she let it slip.
Can you specifically detail what you mean by get control of the game, just to be in your words?
Get control of the game is call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor. Right, and consistently call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor.
It's that simple. Call a foul. Just call what's supposed to be called. This didn't come out of nowhere. The warning signs were there early. You could feel it building. You could see it in the missed calls, the no whistles, the way players were getting away with bumping, hacking, and grabbing.
This is Jacy Sheldon right here with an entire handful of Caitlin Clark's shoulder and bicep, and she's twisting it. Okay? I mean, this is wild. Here's the zoomed out look, the snapshot. I mean, this league does not have control of its players.
The league is apparently content letting fringe players like Jacy Sheldon take wild swipes at Caitlin Clark. And that's doing two things. First, they're risking the health of the only player driving national interest, ticket sales, and ratings. Caitlin goes down again, and the league doesn't just lose a player, it risks losing everything she's built. And second, they're sending a message to every other player in the league that there's no accountability, that you can take cheap shots, and if it's against Caitlin Clark, you'll get away with it. But let's get back to Stephanie White, because she was far from done roasting the refs and the WNBA.
Coach, do you think it's something pertaining to your team, or do you think this is a league-wide issue?
Well, I've seen quite a few dust-ups in the league so far, so I think it's a league-wide issue. I mean, bad officiating is bad officiating.
Now this is the clip that's going to make headlines. Stephanie White wasn't just calling out the refs for blowing this game. She said it straight up. This is a league-wide issue that's been going on for a long time. And the most damning part? She said they've brought it up with the league over and over again, and nothing. No action, no accountability, just silence. But then came the mic drop. The quote that's going to cost her some money.
The game has changed so much. Players are faster, they're better, they're bigger, they're stronger. They're as good as they've ever been. They're as athletic as they've ever been. The game is fast now. Things are happening quickly. Everybody's getting better, except the officials.
Exactly. When Stephanie White says the officials are not keeping up with the league, that's not just criticism. That's a red alert. That's basically calling out the entire officiating infrastructure as outdated, overwhelmed, and incapable of managing the modern WNBA game, a game that's faster, more physical, and now under more national scrutiny than ever before. And this should be the massive wake-up call. But here's the thing. It's not the first one.
They just don't call anything, and I don't understand how that's 6 free throws. I'm playing 40 minutes, touching the paint almost every play is absurd. It's absurd, and so I'm saying, like, I'll get fined for that, and that's fine, but, I mean, and I needed to make more shots, like, late game, but, I mean, they're fouling the shit out of me every single play. Yeah. So I'm very frustrated with that, and I'm sick of it. I don't know what I need to do. I talk to the refs nice. I pray before the game. Like, I'm over it.
Exactly. When one of your league's biggest stars is on the verge of tears, literally praying for better officiating, it's no longer a behind-the-scenes issue. It's a 5-alarm fire in full public view. And if the WNBA doesn't act now, they're risking everything. Because there are 3 major problems.
Finally fed up. Once again, WNBA, we're not talking about your basketball. We're talking about the WNBA WWE Raw circus that you got going on right now.
First, nobody is even talking about the actual game. Not the talent on the court. Not the fever advancing. They're talking about the brawls, the officiating, the missed calls, and the chaos. And yeah, fans might like some physicality, but for serious sports fans, this was a joke. And then there's this. If Caitlyn is out again for an extended period of time, the WNBA is toast. Full stop. It's almost comically delusional that some WNBA players think they've got negotiating power heading into the next CBA, when the whole world saw what happened during just 5 games without Caitlin Clark.
All the owners have to do is say, what if she gets injured again? It's like, we are not committing to this because she can get injured again. And if she gets injured again, it's over.
Her short absence may have cut potential salary growth for everybody in half. The owners aren't blind. They know they're one injury away from the league snapping back to 2023 level ratings and attendance. One absence away from losing the momentum they've waited decades to build. And finally, the biggest issue. The league has created a divide. By refusing to fix the officiating, they've fueled this us versus them mentality. Not just between Fever fans and other teams, but between Caitlin Clark fans and the league itself. And that is absolutely the worst case scenario for the WNBA. Because now, you don't just have people rooting for Caitlyn to win basketball games. You have people rooting for her to prove the league wrong, to keep shining in spite of the disrespect, to show up the system that clearly doesn't want to embrace her, even as she's single-handedly raising the league's value. By constantly pushing back on her and crapping on her fans, they've created this culture war. And this game, it just took that divide to the next level. Now the spotlight's on. The fuse has been lit. What happens next will say everything about the league's leadership, because like it or not, they've got a massive PR crisis on their hands, and they might finally have no choice but to act. If you're still here, drop a basketball in the comments to let me know you watched to the end. Thanks for watching. See you next time.